Hey everyone, Cursed Deck Builder here, making our way to 10,000 decks assisted, and today we have something a little different. Instead of doing a deck assist video to help someone with their deck, I'm doing more of a deck tech video showing you one of my decks. This is a deck I used to have laying around a few years ago. I haven't played with it since then, but this video gave me the opportunity to kind of improve it, edit it, do a bit of work on it and have it ready for a video here. And if you've seen the title of the video, the picture, or clicked this video at all, you'll already know that that deck is Ayli Eternal Pilgrim Lifegain. So, before we get too far into this Lifegain deck, let us remind you that in the video description will be the deck list we'll look at the end of the video for this deck, if you'd like to see it in advance and you don't like surprises. But there'll also be a link that if you would like me to make a deck assist video for you, you can fill out a form, submit it to me, I'll make a video. And if you want that video to be the next video I work on, there is a link to skip the queue down there too. And if you'd like to comment, like, subscribe, and tell me if you like this kind of deck tech video, because this is the first one of these I'm making, and if you find it interesting, maybe I'll make more. If you want to see more of my decks, maybe I'll make a few more of these videos, but I'll leave that to you. So, who is Ayli Eternal Pilgrim, and why are we using them as our Lifegain commander? Well, we just had a Lifegain deck earlier today, and I want to point out that this Lifegain deck is not about getting a lot of Lifegain triggers, it's about gaining like millions upon millions, maybe billions, up to you, life. This is a deck that puts your life way beyond anything else that is reasonable, to the point that infinite life doesn't exist, but it might as well be. So Ayli is a character from Zendikar. Zendikar is one of my favorite planes, and Ayli's super interesting because I started in Worldwake, so the Eldrazi coming out was really, really cool as a new Magic player, and Ayli is a core who has gone against her people's ways to worship the Eldrazi. Something I don't necessarily recommend, but she's an interesting character. I really like her. She's, I believe, canonically still alive at the moment, so she could be up to no good in the future, but for now, I do think she's really, really cool. So what does she do? Well, she is a 2-mana commander, which I do love, in white-black, which I also love, and she's a 2/3 with Death Touch. She has 2 activated abilities. One that says, for 1 mana, sacrifice another creature. You gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. And then another one that says, 1 white-black, sacrifice another creature, and then you exile target non-land permanent. However, you can only activate this one if you have more than 10 life than your starting life total. So in Commander, that's 50 life, which is a bit tough to get to and maintain. So when Ayli came out, I was really excited for her, but I ended up not being able to build anything that really impressed me. But a few years later, I came across I believe it was a Reddit post that someone had made about their idea for Ayli, and I don't think it got a lot of traction, which I thought was very funny. And part of the reason I made this series so that, lonely posts on Reddit could get attention, but this card was part of an infinite life combo, or a next to infinite life combo. And what it does is it uses that first trigger, the first activated ability, with a specific type of combo. And we're going to look at that combo right now. And that combo is using cards like Dru Spiritualist and cards like Nomads Core. So Dru Spiritualist is a human cleric that says whenever a cleric, which is itself, and we're just going to say whenever it becomes the target of a spell or an ability, it gains 2 toughness. And then Nomads Core says for 0 mana, just an activated ability for free, the next 1 damage that would be dealt to Nomads Core this turn is dealt to target creature you control instead. And what you can do with just these 2 cards is start targeting Dru Spiritualist over and over with Nomads Core's ability, gaining Dru Spiritualist toughness at an alarming rate, right? You just pick a number of times you're going to activate this and then get to that number. I will say, for what it's worth, I imagine this makes this hard to do on MTGO, but that's the downsides of using a computer program and not paper to play Magic. So you use Nomads Core's ability 1,000,000 times, and now Dru Spiritualist has 2,000,001 toughness, And then you can use Ayli to consume Dru Spiritualist, gaining you 2 million life. Now, I say instant speed here because I think it's really worth knowing that once these 3 cards are on the battlefield, like, you can do this at any time, right? As long as you have 1 open mana, you don't have to actually immediately do the combo. You can just leave it around, because Nomads Core can activate at instant speed to target Dru Spiritualist 1 million times, and then Ayli's ability sacrifices the Ritualist, which means it cannot further be interacted with. So outside of split-second interaction, no interaction really gets around this kind of ability. You do have the problem that once you sacrifice the Spiritualist, the ability is on the stack and can be interfered with there. But up until that point, any removal, anything like that, you can work around it, which is really, really cool. So this ability by itself can gain us millions of health, but if we add in another card such as Veto, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, all of a sudden that life gain is now to the detriment of our opponents, and we can use this combo to win the game. Now, one of the things I do really like about this combo is there is a lot of redundancy in the pieces that are there. So let's, for example, we're going to take a look at Ayli. With Ayli, we have several cards that do that same thing. Disciple of Grizzlebrand at almost the same mana cost, and not quite the same toughness, but a very similar creature will have the same activated ability. Mirren, the Moaning Well, which is unfortunately a little expensive for what it is, I believe it's like 15 or 16 American, does this ability as a land, but you have to pay 3 life for it. And Starlit Sanctum is another card that has this ability, but it'll only work with clerics, which means it'll only work with the Dru Spiritualist, but it is another redundant piece. Now, I like this because Ayli is already in our command zone, but it is always good to have a little redundancy for our main combo. Then, for the Dru Spiritualist, we actually have 2 other creatures with the same ability. Task Force gains toughness 3 at a time, and Angelic Protector also gains toughness 3 at a time. You don't particularly mind which one of these you pick. Dru Spiritualist is obviously the ideal one because it's the lowest mana, but otherwise you're pretty happy with any of these. And then for Nomads Core, we have Shaman Core that has the same ability, and Outrider Core with the same ability again. I believe there's like 2 or 3 more Cores that have this ability, but I would only play the 3. And then you can look on the side, we have spells or artifacts such as Lightning Greaves and Shuko, both of which have a 0 equip cost, which means, albeit slowly, and I mean at sorcery speed, you can still do this combo, right? If no one has any interaction, you can just manually equip Shuko to Nomads Core, equip it to Ayli, equip it back to Nomads Core, and every time you do that, Nomads Core to Dru Spiritualist, and every time you do that, the Spiritualist will gain toughness. So there is a little more redundancy here, and it'll be up to you to which pieces you want to use. Then, if you want to go deep into the Veto style finisher, we have Veto, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, Viscopa Guildmage, which I think is my favorite one because though it has an activated ability to make the effect, the second ability that says whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life, is each opponent and not target player, which is actually really hard to get to. And so when you have that, you can defeat all your opponents in one move. Likewise, Sanguine Bond has the target player version of this for 5 mana, and it just kind of stays on the board, and it's harder to deal with than Veto is because it's an enchantment. And I have sneaking up from the bottom that if you are playing Sanguine Bond, you can play Exquisite Blood for free, basically. I say for free, it's a pretty expensive Magic card, but when you have both of those cards together, you will win the game, as they create an infinite loop about life loss. But speaking of redundancy, one other thing that's worth pointing out is we are in black, the color of Tutors. So playing any number of Tutors in any way can increase the redundancy of the combo. And so if you think about it this way, the combo outside of let's say Ayli, takes about 12 slots in our deck. This isn't including the Tutors, which I would say count for a lot of different cards in the deck, but we have about a little more than 10% of our deck as set up to create a combo with many redundant elements to get a billion life. And so, though I do really like, I'm just going to go back here for a second, Veto and these kind of life gain equals life loss cards, there's other ways to kind of manage this kind of gain we're getting, which brings us to what can be done with a billion life. And the idea is that we want to play cards that are already good, but then just get better with having infinite life, right? Where if we look at something like card draw, which is already something that's naturally good and very strong in black, especially if we look at Sign in Blood, Read the Bones, Greed, these are cards I suggest for every black deck. But then we can go down below and see that we kind of open ourselves up to even stronger card draw. Necropotence is really, really good. Oh, Ad Nauseam should be on this. This is on me. Ad Nauseam should also be here. Just imagine it's between Dark Tutelage and Dark Confidant. Actually, imagine it's after Necropotence, because it's much stronger than that. But Necropotence, when you have a billion life, can draw your entire deck in one go. Ad Nauseam, which is a 5-mana black instant that has you do the Dark Confidant effect over and over again, will draw your entire deck if you want. Now, I don't recommend drawing your whole deck because you'll lose the game, but drawing like 80% of your deck in one go. Dark Tutelage and Dark Confidant both have the same ability. One is a creature, the other is an enchantment. And as you can see, Dark Tutelage and Necropotence just got reprints in Wilds of Eldraine. I would pick up both. Well, an ability like Dark Tutelage just gets better when you no longer have to worry about your life total going down by flipping cards. So these are cards that are already really, really good, and we get to play them and play them better. But what about cards that just exponentially get better while still being really, really good? Well, we've got cards like Toxic Deluge, which is Black's strongest board clear in the format, where you pay life to destroy creatures, basically, and now you can pay any amount of life, right? No longer do you have to worry about one creature that's 12 or 15 toughness and thinking, oh, I can't actually get around it. It's just too much life for me. Now you can. Now you don't need to worry about it. Likewise, Command the Dreadhorde, which is a mass reanimation spell out of everyone's graveyards, depending on your life total to reanimate cards. Well, now you can pay your entire life total if you, well, an entire, like you can reanimate the entire graveyards paying a fraction of your life total. And you're really happy with that result. And still, at sometimes in the game, Command the Dreadhorde is just fine by itself as a value play when you don't have a billion health. And you can even reanimate the pieces of your combo so that you can do the combo in the first place. Vilis, Broker of Blood, is just an insane magic card. And he's here as the top end of our curve. If you cast or reanimate Vilis, well, you've pretty much won the game. Every time you pay life, which this deck loves to do, you are just going, or you lose life, I should say, you are going to draw more and more of your deck and just put yourself in a winning position. Likewise, Kuruk, Son of Yawmoth, is just a fantastic spell that allows you to pay life instead of black mana symbols. And once you have all that life, you're going to get ahead incredibly fast. And if you don't, you should probably still play Kuruk because he just makes your deck so strong. Gix, Yawmoth Praetor, draws you cards and in exchange for paying life. Now, this also helps your opponents, but generally, this is a creature-heavy deck, and you're going to be really, really happy to be making that trade. And after you've gotten enough cards in your hand, the Gix's activated ability is just stupidly good, where you're basically trading a bunch of cards that you don't have enough mana to cast all of them for all of, like, a huge chunk of one of your opponent's cards, getting all of the abilities and getting to cheat on so many different casting costs. Hatred is a card, I don't think I play it, but it is kind of expensive, but it is a really fun card. Get one attack through, cast Hatred, and take out that player. It is a very, very fun card. And then Moonlight Bargain is just a card. It's this one should be ad nauseum, but it is just a very, very good card that you'll be happy to play. It is discount ad nauseum, but generally a good card. Then one more is Bolas's Citadel, another card that is just generally good to play in this format, but gets ridiculously good as your life total gets higher. Now I've got one that I've been thinking of for a while, and I don't know if I will actually suggest it. It's not in the current deck. Varac Warp Sengir allows you to double activate abilities if those abilities required you to pay life and they weren't mana abilities. I don't know how good this is. I think there has to be adjustments in the deck to do this. There's definitely some, like for example, if I was playing Phyrexian Reclamation, which is the one that for 1 and a black and pay 2 life you get creatures back, this would be very, very good with that. And fetch lands, if you're playing a lot of fetch lands, this card gets better. I just don't know to what degree exactly it is good, so at the moment it is off to the side. All right, so we've got some nice life gain cards. We have a nice life gain combo. We've got some nice life loss cards. What would we be doing to support our combo, protect our combo, and kind of interact with our opponents? Let's start with support and protection with Giver of Runes, Mother of Runes, both of which are really good at protecting Ayli, both of which are really, really good turn 1 plays that when you have out, your ability to go off and your ability to get good attacks and blocks in just go up really, really fast. These cards are just really, really strong. You're going to be pretty happy playing them at any point in the game, and they will keep your creatures alive. But if your creatures die, we have a big favorite of mine, Unearth, to get back almost every piece of our combo, depending on which combination of cards we're using. And brings back Ayli, so you can let Ayli die if you're feeling that you'd just rather unearth her after she's died once or twice. Then I have Not Dead After All, classic Feign Death abilities, really nice to protect your commander with. But speaking of reanimation, we could also play cards like Victimize, that will bring 2 creatures back from the graveyard exchanged for 1. And 2 creatures back from the graveyard sometimes is the rest of your combo, which is perfect, or sometimes is just value of getting 2 really strong cards back. Reanimate just brings any creature back. This should have probably been at the good life loss section because it does work in that way, but it is just a general good card that you can use to reanimate your opponent's creatures, your creatures, anyone's creatures, and be really happy with the results. Animate Dead does the same thing, but it's an enchantment and it's 2 mana. And then Buried Alive is just one of many cards that will entomb the creatures that you want to see in the graveyard so that you can get your combo out and going. Also, that art is so metal. I love it. Then what do we have left in the deck? Well, we've got stuff that is what I would like to call good stuff. Good stuff is just generally cards I like to play that are strong in the colors, and I will leave it up to you to decide to what degree of these cards you're going to play. These cards tend to be strong and they tend to be a little expensive. So if you have these cards and you want the deck to strengthen, you put these in. If you would like the deck to be a little weaker and a little more budget friendly, then I would suggest maybe, putting in more life gain cards or putting in more interaction with life loss or other general creatures that will gain or lose you life that are probably just not at this power level. But at this power level, what I have is cards like Esper Sentinel, a fantastic draw engine, Lotho, who is a treasure engine, Drannith Magistrate that stops all your opponent's commanders, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, which will punish other non-creature decks a lot more than us, and then Tymna, who is a big fan favorite of mine, a very, very strong card that will trade life for cards. Brina, obviously one of my favorite ladies, and just such a powerful bird, such a great bird. Maybe one day I'll do the Brina video, but right now, Brina's so good. Play Brina. But Brina, Tymna, and Gix are kind of like the collection of really strong 3-mana card draw enablers for your deck. And then Archivist of Ogma is always a creature I love to play, as it will draw you cards, gain you life. You'll be really, really happy with it. Then we want removal. So going away from good stuff, this is what I would recommend for sure as a removal suite. Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile are just fantastic cards in general. Generous Gift takes out any permanent of any kind. Fracture is it's less mana but doesn't hit creatures, but is also a pretty strong ability. And then in terms of board clears and black removal, Dam and Damnation, both Damnation being board wipe, Dam being malleable into a board wipe, and Infernal Grasp being just a straight up destroy creature. I think this is more than enough, and I think if you'd like, you could just cut Infernal Grasp if that's the last one you don't want. That's up to you. Then I have a section that I'd like to call Weird Stuff I Like, where these are additions I will put in, and I will leave it up to you what you want to put in these kind of slots. And what we have here is Curse of Silence. We've got, which I've talked about before. It's a card I do really like in this format. Comball, I really like him. I think he's just generically a good card and can really shut down some strategies, while still you can just put him out early and just get a nice little life buffer. I just think this is a card that's been reprinted a million times, and I think it doesn't take away to the fact that he is just generally a strong card. Just don't forget your triggers, as I forget all the time. This third one here is maybe dumb stuff that I like. Karma deals a damage to each player on their upkeep equal to the swamps they control, and Urborg makes it so all your opponent's lands are swamps. So each player is taking like 5 or 6 damage a turn, but since you have 1,000,000 life or more, you don't mind. I don't know if this is good, but it's definitely very funny, and that's kind of why I played in it. If you have any interest in having a stronger deck, or maybe self-respect, you can just take Karma out. And then something I like just as a little more card draw is Mindblade Render. I'm sure you've noticed, I really, really like card draw in Magic. I like having the most amount of choices and seeing the most amount of my deck. So just having another form of card draw right here is pretty nice. And then Jailbreak, because I do really, really like Jailbreak. It's just such a fun card. All right, before we look at the list, pros and cons. That's a good question. What are the pros and cons? Well, the pros is this is a really fun deck to play. You have a straightforward strategy for the first half, and the second half you just get to kind of lord over the table and do whatever you want to win. It plays really naturally strong cards and cards that scale better as the deck is successful. So as you're doing your combo, you will get further and further along. It is also a combo that's pretty easy to kind of achieve. Even if your opponents are really aggressive against your combo, you have such redundancy with both the copies of the cards that you have and the tutors and your ability to play through the graveyard, is that you're just really happy to kind of let them, try to stop you a few times and then end up getting there anyways, which I think is really, really fun. You get to be arch enemy sometimes, and some people like that. This is the transition. We're at the slash of the pros and cons. Being arch enemy can be fun if you like it. Your opponents, as soon as you gain that life, your opponents will inevitably decide that you need to go down and start strategizing to defeat you. But depending on the deck and depending on your position, that might be difficult to do. Most of the time they either have to have commander damage, they have to have their own infinite combo, or they need poison counters. All of which I would say nowadays does exist in some degree in like most higher, like medium powered tables, but it's still difficult to do, and they need to get there fast while you have this huge advantage. Sliding to the con side, they will defeat you if they work together, right? I don't see this as much as a con as kind of part of the fun of the deck, is that if your opponents do work together, you could have 2 billion life, but if they destroy every creature you play, interact with every enchantment and artifact you have, and just don't let you play Magic, that billions of life doesn't mean anything. So it's not like you're an invincible deck. It's not like people hate playing against you. They just need to work together to take you out, and if they work together well, they can manage to do so. The other cons is this is a deck that's particularly weak to effects like Stony Silence. Well, I guess Stony Silence isn't the right word. Suppression field, I think, which makes all activated abilities cost more, or any ability that stops creatures from having activated abilities. That will shut down the deck. Rest in Peace effects are also particularly good as they hit a lot of our deck and a lot of stops a lot of the things that we do. Before we gain the tons of life, if we're too aggressive with cards like Necropotence, we can go too low early and have our opponents knock us out of the game. That can be real tough. But otherwise, I would say this is generally a fun and balanced deck to play. If you feel like the version I've shown and is in the deck list coming up is a little too strong, like I said before, cut down on the good stuff section, put in some other cards. You know, I still recommend having the card draw if available. You could just play cards like Wall of Omens and or other flicker effects or other kind of packages, an equipment package. There's quite a bit of room to do these kind of things. I think there's about 12 slots that you can play around with. And that will adjust the power level of the deck to the level you want the deck to be at, which I think is particularly good. And that's Ayli. So let's take a look at the deck list. I think I have to cut through this. There it is. This is my deck list. Oh, apparently little reminders here. Get rid of those now. But here we can see this is the deck that I've constructed. It's got a few cards that I didn't name and a few adjustments here and there, but this is mainly it. It's got 36 lands, which I feel could go up to 37, but we play so much card draw and our curve is pretty low that I don't feel too bad about it. And then after that, we can see if we go down here, our curve, our 0 mana spell is Profane Tutor. Our 8 mana spell is Vilis, which is like our strongest card in the deck. Well, with that and Necropotence, but is one of the strongest cards in the deck, so I'm fine paying 8 mana for it. 7 mana is Kirk, which is actually 4 mana. And then we have 2 6 mana cards and 1 5 mana. This should be ad nauseum. I'll change that in a second. And the rest of the deck kind of curves out as so. Our 2 mana slot is our highest slot, which does conflict with Ayli. However, considering some of these cards are redundant forms of Ayli, and the fact that Ayli is almost always your turn 2 play, I don't particularly think of it as too much of a problem. I didn't say this before, but I think people sometimes underestimate how strong it is to have a 2 mana commander. You get to play Ayli every single game. Sometimes I will say, you might get, if you get mana screwed in a way, well, don't keep that hand if you don't have both colors. But otherwise, Ayli comes out every single game. She is very scary as a blocker because she has Death Touch, and 2/3 is a pretty good stat line at 2 mana, which means she can block most early game threats. And she can chip in for damage during that time. It's pretty free to attack with her a few times, just do a little damage here and there while you set up your combo, while you set up your board. The setup phase can be as long as you want, but you have so many good cards here to help you get there. And I think that's generally it. Ooh, what are the tokens? I didn't actually look. Elephant, Treasure. Ah, yes, from Not Dead Yet. Excellent. That's not too bad. 3 tokens is pretty good for a deck like this. Now, once again, there's definitely some cards here that you could be playing instead. I didn't mean to scroll over Karma for that, but yes, instead of Karma, you could play Bitter Blossom. That's definitely, I think it just got reprinted, or other effects that you pay a life each turn and gain a creature. I think there's a total of 2 or 3 additional ones beyond Bitter Blossom, but I could be wrong. Things like that you can play pretty freely in a deck like this. But like I said, there's a lot of directions to go. I really like this deck. I think it's really fun. I am extremely tempted to put it back together in paper and then play it somewhere, and we'll see what we can do with that. I hope this deck tech was helpful to you. It was really fun for me to go back through this old deck, and I hope you like the deck or give it a try, because Ayli is a really cool lady, and I find this deck is pretty good. I'm sure there's some adjustments I can do, and there's probably some things that you guys have thought of that I could be adding to this deck. And if you have thought of something, please go ahead and post it in the comments below, because I'd love to hear what you think, and I'd love to hear the things that I missed. It's always harder to, critique your own decks than it is to critique others, because this is the deck that I built, and it's already, well, I'm not going to say perfect, but it's already built in my mind. So it does help if you guys or anyone else would take a look at it and tell me what I've done terribly, terribly wrong. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you'd be interested in other deck techs, and please send me your deck lists if you'd like me to take a look at them. I love doing this, and I love talking about commanders and commander decks, and I hope to do more of it soon. All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk soon.